The anime begins by introducing us to our hero, Akira. He finds himself confessing his love to his childhood friend named Towasa. Both become very shy, but fortunately, they accept to get married in the future. Later at night, each of them in their respective homes talks to the AI assistant about what happened with the other, since we are in a world that is much more advanced and technological. In order not to say that we are in the year 2039, we finally discover that the girl is a mastermind, as she works on the creation of several androids. After a few weeks have passed, both meet at a presentation by the young woman, as she must convince many shareholders to invest in her own android project. Subsequently, she begins to explain her project to the investors. When, suddenly, a subject climbs onto the stage, he begins to shout that she must not corrupt society with androids. Therefore, he soon draws his weapon and fires at Towasa. The hero immediately comes to her defense in order to be able to cover her, but ends up receiving 2 impacts, causing him to begin to gradually lose consciousness. He feels very sad because he knows that he is going to die. Repeatedly, we see that the hero wakes up and finds himself completely naked, in what appears to be an abandoned laboratory. Afterward, the young man observes the city from above and realizes that it is in complete ruin. Akira begins to wonder if he is perhaps dreaming, since he does not remember anything about what happened after the gunshot. Suddenly, we see that a subject accompanied by his daughter appears in front of the hero. They call him a sage and mention that an earthquake caused the ruins to collapse. Furthermore, due to how weak the hero is, he ends up clearly fainting. A while later, we see that the subject and his daughter take the hero to a road when he awakens. That subject introduces himself as Wade and adds that he is the chief of a village that is very close, as well as his daughter, named Ed. The hero says that they possibly mistook him for someone else, but Wade says no, because in his village the hero has been venerated as a divine god for many centuries. This causes the hero not to believe such words and to wonder what could have happened to the place, since literally everything is completely destroyed. Wade interrupts the hero's thoughts and tells him that they are already near the village of Okodeji. This causes the hero to be surprised, because that is the name of a tower that he used to visit with Towasa. A little later, we see that the hero is in Wade's house, and there we meet a woman named Taverina. She cannot believe that he brought the sage to her house, clearly referring to the hero. Akira, at that moment, thanks her for giving him housing at that time. That night, he finds himself having dinner with them, and with other subjects. The hero is astonished to learn that the group does not possess the technology that he considered normal, and that they also do not have access to the knowledge of books. This occurs because there is an institution that governs the world called OL, which managed to dissolve the countries and create only one. In this way, the group begins a small discussion, as they do not know if they should report the hero to the agency, since Akira can be considered a true relic. Taverina mentions that OL does not need to know anything about him, because since he has just awakened, he must first get used to this new world. A few hours later, the hero cannot sleep and decides to go out to the terrace. He feels very bad thinking that he is still in a dream. All of this while a mysterious girl watches him from a distance. The next day, the hero thinks that he should concentrate on searching for clues to know something about Towasa. After that, he greets Eddie and asks the girl for a favor. A little later, he heads with Eddie to a market. While he begins to examine each one of the things, although much of the city's technology has been lost, they continue trading. The hero asks the girl if there happens to be any library in the village, but she takes him to her school, where he finds several books. However, he thinks that the information is very limited, deducing at that moment that OL restricted their knowledge. While they walk back home, the girl confesses to the hero that she hates OL. This happens because he asked if there was someone in the village with whom they could speak. Suddenly we see that there is a church where a wedding is taking place. However, even the matrimonial laws have changed in this era, as marriage is now quite different. The hero explains to Eddie that normally marriage is between 2 people, but differently from this world, they can marry a large number of people at the same time, which leaves the hero quite surprised. Soon after, we see a memory of the hero from when he spoke with Towasa about a project. The girl mentions that humanity was afraid of technological advancements, because if androids were created, they could have facilitated their daily lives. Furthermore, the hero suddenly handed over the ring, which left the girl completely enchanted. Back in the present, while the girl and the hero rest, we see that Taverina reaches them. She asks for help, and soon we see that they return home and remark that their tractor is damaged, and due to the fact that the hero is a technological genius like Towasa, he ends up repairing it in an instant, leaving the group fascinated. However, the group is interrupted when Commissioner Kans arrives along with several soldiers. Additionally, we see that the person who betrayed him was a member of Taverina's family, named Bucky. In the same way, Kans introduces himself as the Commissioner General of Old during a session. Kans mentions that, because the hero was found in the ruins, he is considered a relic. Therefore, they captured him and want to take him elsewhere. As Wade tries to intervene, the subject ends up firing at him, mentioning that failing to report such a find is considered treason. He adds that he will also take Eddie, as they were the ones who actually found the hero first. Bucky becomes very nervous and says that taking his family was not part of the deal. But the completely convinced subject says he has just decided this and ends up electrocuting Wade. A little later, they take the group on a train when, suddenly, it stops. The group gets out and Kans tells the guards that, after taking the hero, they must return to the village and finish off everyone, as he considers that he must eliminate whoever interacted with him. Just before Kans fires at the girl, the hero hears a voice telling him to duck. Next, we see that some lasers appear and cut the train into pieces. Thus, the mysterious girl from before appears and immediately launches herself at Kans, giving him a beating. Subsequently, the subjects prepare to shoot, and the girl tells them to hide, as she plans to finish off everyone. At that instant, all the guards begin to fire, but she creates a barrier that protects them. The girl draws a laser sword and begins to eliminate each of the subjects, while Akira manages to finish off one who was about to shoot her. Repeatedly, Kans begins to fire with a sort of machine gun. However, she activates an ability and creates a laser cannon, which fires at the subject, generating great destruction. Finally, Akira asks if she happens to be an android, and the girl responds that she is and introduces herself with the name Yuugure. However, Akira is in shock upon seeing her face, because he thinks she is Towasa herself, who tells him that they should get married. Akira becomes startled and the girl becomes completely intense with him. Certainly, his plan was to assemble a harem, since marriage is unrestricted. After making him uncomfortable, she takes out a ring and he recognizes it immediately. Akira realizes that the girl knows Towasa, but she says she possesses classified information. A time later, we see the group return to the village, and Bucky shows himself to be very regretful for what he did. However, Akira understands him. He knows that he only did it to defend the village. Finally, Akira knows that if he remains there, the village will be in danger, since Ole is after him. For that reason, he mentions that he will depart immediately. Later at night, Yuugure and Akira say goodbye to the village group. While they walk, she insists again that they must get married. Akira refuses and says he will not marry a stranger. But she is clever and tells him that they will get to know each other gradually. Then Akira tells the girl that they will go to where he awakened, in order to seek clues about his past. The girl tells him that if he does not marry her, she will not be able to give him any more information. Shortly after, they arrive at the ruins, and suddenly, Yuugure hides with Akira using an invisibility ability. Since at that exact moment two girls appear and Yuugure mentions that she does not want to encounter them, as that could cause her great trouble. Upon seeing her, Akira thinks that one of them has a face very similar to Towasa's. At this moment, we meet the purple-haired girl named Yoyami and also this girl called Kubo. They are seeking information, as they identified that someone finished off Kans. However, they sense Eddie's presence. Eddie begins to be interrogated by them. But upon seeing that the girl possesses no information, both end up leaving the location. Akira goes out immediately to see if she is okay, and the girl hands him a smartwatch that she had found. She mentions that such an object is 200 years old, which left Akira a bit depressed because he knows that Towasa possibly died of old age. Furthermore, after hearing a message left by her, he discovers that she regretted it and asked that he never look for her again. However, due to the love he feels, he affirms that he will go to Tokyo, where he used to live. Hours later, Akira asks Yuugure about the two girls. She mentions that they are military captains of Ole. Since Yuugure does not want to provide information, she begins to act in a provocative and fiery manner with Akira, stating again that she wants to marry him. Despite him saying he was committed to Towasa, she affirms that even though she is an android, she has the capacity to please him, showing herself to be quite a perverse girl. The next day, both say goodbye to the girl and head to the port to cross the ocean. They meet a wholesaler named Oboro, who thoughtfully takes the two of them after they mention they are going to Tokyo. In addition to providing them with information, after a few hours of travel, they finally arrive at another port. Right after saying goodbye to Oboro and entering the premises, Akira ends up bumping into a girl. After apologizing to her, who is a painter, she introduces herself as Moro. Following this, they head to a shop to replace a brush that Akira broke. However, due to a billing error, the shop owner calls the young man a useless hedger. This causes Yuugure to say they should leave immediately. Upon leaving, the girl explains that hedgers are people who have renounced their human rights and, in exchange, their crimes or debts are totally forgiven, being forced to perform heavy labor for the old agency. Next, both tell Moro they are on their way to Mount Osori, which is on the route to Tokyo. The girl, slightly nervous, says that Ole performs checks at the entrances, but claims to know a route to avoid these checkpoints. They follow the path toward the mountain without encountering any control. Furthermore, we see that Moro is very good at painting, as she draws Yuugure while they walk. Later at night, Akira asks if she happens to recharge when she eats. However, the girl says she does it because she likes it, since she possesses a reactor that recharges her constantly. Next, Yuugure asks the girl to show him one of her books, but since it is something sacred to her, she ends up refusing. However, seeing that Yuugure has no further intentions, she ends up showing it, because for Moro, this is a book she must guard with her own life, as it was given to her by her parents. The next day, we see that they finally manage to reach Mount Osori. They pass the guard without any problem, and as Yuugure feels hungry, they soon head to lunch. Akira tells the girl that he feels pity for the hedgers, since despite being human, they possess no rights. As the girl ate everything, Akira says he will go get more. However, two guards begin to point at them at that moment. In that instant, a subject arrives whom we know by the name of Marlon. Moro approaches him, and Marlon thanks her for having provided information, since it appears the girl was a hedger. Moro apologizes to both and mentions she did it because Marlon promised to return her parents' books. However, he mocks her and says he literally burned all the books, which leaves her quite furious, but she can do nothing, for the guards are pointing at her. After that, the subject pushes her and she begins to cry, since those were her most precious possessions that her father had given her. Nevertheless, Moro creates a distraction, and both young people manage to escape the place. Despite now being safe, Akira feels very bad and says they should go save her. However, she completely refuses. On the other hand, we see that they captured Moro, and Marlon burns the only book the girl had left, who cannot endure such suffering. And Yuugure finally releases Akira, and he begins to run toward the girl. However, the girl chose to remain still, since Akira said he would not marry her because she is an android. After a few hours have passed, we see that Moro is chained in one of the old bases. Therefore, we see Akira defeat the guard and enter immediately to rescue the girl. All this while Yuugure observes them from a distance. Back to Akira, despite trying to hide, they end up triggering an alarm that puts all the guards on alert. Just when the two thought they were going to manage to get out, the young people run into Marlon. They capture Moro and begin to give Akira a beating. Despite the beating he is suffering, Akira gives words of encouragement to the girl. Just when they were about to finish her off, we see that Yuugure arrives and mentions that everything she will do now goes against her principle. Therefore, she immediately begins to give a beating to each of the subjects present, in addition to delivering a kick to Marlon that sends him flying. This leaves Moro fascinated, as it was the first time she saw an android in combat, and Yuugure mentions that she did all that only to achieve her objective, which is clearly to marry Akira. This causes the young man to thank her, realizing that deep down she possesses a heart. After a few hours have passed, we see that it is already day, and after a long walk, Yuugure hands the bag to the girl, as she took it from one of the guards during the fight. While the girl changes her clothes, we see that Yuugure utilizes advanced technology to heal her wounds. Furthermore, she removes the mark that identified her as a hedger, replacing it with the drawing of the bird that was in her book. This leaves the girl enchanted and motivated, making her say that she wants to accompany them to search for the remainder of her father's books. After thinking for a few seconds, the group ends up accepting her, which makes her cry with happiness. After several hours, the group arrives at a city called Mori. Akira is fascinated to learn that he will now be able to take a bath and rest. They observe that a festival for singles is taking place. Although there are several armed guards watching the site, both girls say that it is not necessary to go, because they already have a partner, clearly referring to Akira. However, he acts with fidelity, mentioning that he only has eyes for his dear Towasa. At that moment, the two begin to act in a toxic manner and suggest that the four of them get married. As Akira refuses, the girls decide that they will participate in the festival. In a change of scene, we see several subjects negotiating weapons, since it appears that a truck from Ole dropped several of them. Suddenly, an armed squad invades the place. A girl named Fizz enters and mentions that they found an informant, declaring that she will be the new leader of the Lontano group. When the infiltrator tries to attack her, another man named Kalkron assassinates him. He also detains one of the managers, affirming that she is involved in the embezzlement of funds. In that instant, we discover that Fizz and Kalkron are siblings. We then see that the father of Kalkron and Fizz is gathered with them. He shows himself to be depressed because he had 8 children in total. But due to the wars faced, only 2 remain alive. For that reason, he is desperate to have grandchildren, as he desires for his lineage to continue. The next day, the girls prepare for the singles festival. Akira warns that he will not go with them, and they depart immediately. As soon as he goes out to the street, he hears that the Lontanos will be at the party. An elderly lady explains to the young man that they control the entire city and assassinate many people. Meanwhile, the girls are on dates with strangers, but they do not seem to connect with anyone. Soon Akira appears at the location and notices the presence of Kalkron, who is very popular among the women. On the other hand, Fizz has a line of admirers, but because she is very selective, she rejects everyone. Her brother appears and mocks her for being alone, reminding her that the purpose of both is to obtain partners to have children and continue the lineage. Upon hearing these words, the girl decides to walk alone, and back to Akira. He manages to spy on Yuugure, who became intoxicated from drinking many glasses. Furthermore, at that moment Amoru arrives, which distracts Akira, and immediately Yuugure disappears from his sight. This causes him to set out in search of the girl, and by pure coincidence, he passes by the side of Fizz and spills his drink over her. Akira becomes very nervous upon seeing the name on her chest, as he did not expect to run into the lady from the mafia. After apologizing, Akira accidentally asks if there is something similar to chlorine in this era, which causes the girl to begin interrogating him immediately. Suddenly Amoru appears, who gives him away by saying that he comes from the past. The girl corners Akira against the wall in a very compromising position. Thus, after hearing that he is Akira himself, she asks him to marry her. Akira becomes very nervous, as they are once again asking him for marriage. She adds that if they do so, both would benefit, as she could offer protection against all. Suddenly they hear Kalkron. Fizz becomes nervous when Akira asks if she wants an ALC with him. Basically, it is a term that refers to a marriage of more than 2 people. The girl responds that no, she does not. At the same time, we see Kalkron proposing to Yuugure that she be part of his ALC. That night, both girls talk about the faithful love they feel for Akira. Furthermore, Yuugure explains to Moro what marriage means, since as mentioned, the people in this era are accustomed to marrying more than 2 people at the same time. The next day, Kalkron's father mentions that his son seems to have found a partner and immediately demands that he have a child. On the other hand, Fizz is with her horse when one of her subordinates enters very worried, but she says that he should remain calm, as she has found a partner. After some time has passed, Akira and Moro argue with Yuugure, because she ended up accepting a date with Kalkron to cause jealousy in Akira. Just at that moment, the young man arrives at the location, and despite knowing that Yuugure is an android and he does not care, Fizz also arrives and tells everyone that she came for the date with Akira, adding that they are going to perform ALC together. Clearly, these words left the girls in total shock, and they complain to Akira immediately. Kalkron, observing the scene, suggests that they all go out on a double date. Subsequently, a vehicle appears before them, and Kalkron mentions that he possesses it thanks to his contacts in Seoul, as he performs work for several subjects in Tokyo. Akira becomes very excited, because he needs information about the place, and Kalkron says that he will be able to help him if he entertains him. Later, the group departs to go shopping, and Akira notices that Fizz does not stop observing her brother, becoming sad because they cannot be together due to prejudice. Next, Yuugure goes with Kalkron to an alley and reveals that both plan to cause jealousy in Akira, since the previous night Kalkron found it interesting to be with an android who possesses feelings. Upon leaving, the girl observed Akira handing a flower to Fizz, which makes her very jealous. Akira says he has a special place to go, and they move to a library. Akira begins to search for books to investigate, but Fizz warns that everything is controlled by Seoul. Upon leaving, Amoru suddenly runs into an alley, and the group decides to follow her, as she disappeared from sight. While Fizz recalls moments from childhood, Kalkron appears in front of her, mentioning that when they were children they played hide and seek. Akira and the others decide not to interfere in the conversation. The atmosphere becomes quite intense, as there is a connection of real love between the two. However, she soon comes back to her senses and leaves. The young people begin to argue with one another, because they do not expect them to marry the mobsters. After a good while, the group heads home and the environment is silent. They need to stop because a tire blew out. While they talk, Akira leaned down to collect bolts from the vehicle, and Kalkron threatened him immediately. He says that if Akira hurts his sister, no matter who he is, he will end his life. Afterward, the group was at a cargo port when a container fell from the platform, causing Yuugure to launch herself to save the subject. At that moment, Fizz realizes that the girl is indeed the android and wonders what her brother is thinking. She runs away very sad and Akira follows her. They talk, and she mentions that possibly Kalkron would be the better leader for the family, as everyone loves him. Seeing that he is dating the android, she knows he will not have children, which will make her the leader of the Lontano. Changing scenes, we see the father of the Lontano, whom we know by the name of Eurus. He receives news from an informant who tells him that his son is dating an android. Eurus becomes very disappointed and mentions that he trusted his son too much. Furthermore, due to the fact that Ol is looking for Yuugure, the subject mentions that they must capture her before them. After that, we see that the group finds themselves in a restaurant having a double dinner. However, suddenly, we see that Eurus arrives accompanied by several men and demands that they hand over an android to him. In addition, he raises a theory that Kalkron is with an android because he does not want to have children and wishes to kill him. Thus, he tosses a pistol to Fizz, saying that if she wants to be the leader of the family, she must finish off her brother at that moment. The girl becomes very nervous because if she does not do it, they will end up killing both of them. Kalkron takes the weapon from the girl, and Eurus realizes that neither of them wishes to continue with his lineage. Without thinking, Kalkron occasionally fires at his father, but the shot is blocked by one of his guards. Eurus orders them to imprison Yuugure and finish off the rest, which leaves Yuugure furious. Akira observes a sniper aiming at her, and when he fires, Akira goes forward to protect the girl. This causes Akira to receive an impact and begin to bleed. Next, Kalkron manages to take down the sniper, and Yuugure immediately heals Akira and, very furious, tells everyone that she will finish them. She launches a sort of insects that fire lasers and eliminate all of Eurus's guards. The villain seems to have great skill, but despite that, the girl ends up evading all of his strikes, even stopping the sword with her own hand and knocking the subject out with a kick. Right after, a memory of Towasa is revealed when she was manufacturing the androids, talking with her artificial intelligence assistant, who asked her if androids really could come to have emotions. Back in the present, Akira awakens and has Yuugure by his side. Amuro enters shortly after, very worried, mentioning that he has been unconscious for a week. Akira notices that his wound has scarred and he no longer feels any pain, as Yuugure has been caring for him intensely. Akira thanks the girl and soon Fizz and Kalkron enter. They mention that while Akira was unconscious, they made Kuro withdraw from the organization, and now Fizz is the new boss. We also notice that both siblings are very, very close. Apparently, they stayed together. A while later, the group talks, and Akira mentions that they are going to Sendai. Both siblings recommend that they visit the hot springs. This makes the girls very excited, and Akira, after thinking for a bit, ends up accepting. The next day, we see that Oboro is now working as a taxi driver. The man has 1,000 jobs. After a few hours of travel, the group finally arrives at the hot spring village. Akira's group is fascinated, as it had been a long time since they had relaxed like that. Suddenly, they hear a group fighting, and Akira approaches to talk to them. He ends up receiving a blow from a girl. She was going to punch another young woman, but ended up hitting his face. A short time later, we see that she apologizes, and we know her by the name of Arisai, the owner of the hot springs. We also meet the subject who was with them, named Yuugure. Akira, acting as a truly curious person, asks the girl why they were arguing, and she mentions that her partner had promised to resign from Ol, so she could stay with her at the inn. Subsequently, due to the blow to Akira, she apologizes again and offers a free stay at the location. The group, without thinking twice, accepts the proposal. Then, the young woman shows them the place. Amuro and Yuugure are fascinated to hear that the baths are mixed. This means that both men and women can bathe together. However, Akira refuses, since they do not form an ALC with the girls. His bad luck, right? For a long time, the girls talk about the feelings of Yuugure, who is completely in love with Akira. Amuro also mentions that she loves both of them and would like to form an ALC with them. I see that this man is going to make a giant harem. A little later, Akira is reading some pamphlets when suddenly Yuugure arrives. He asks several questions about her past, but the girl refuses to respond, saying that it is a secret. Yuugure, who was at the location, managed to hear Akira mention Towasa, and begins to explain that he was an investigator for OL. Furthermore, he comments to Akira about an AI war. Such a war between humans and machines began in the year 2052, and millions of people ended up dying, even altering the geography of the world. The subject mentions that Towasa was the savior who stopped the war, and many people do not know this because OL controls the real information. Akira asks how she stopped the conflict, and he explains that it was by creating the armed androids known as Y-series. Before the man leaves, Akira asks what happened to Towasa at the end of the war, and he states that no one knows precisely, as she founded OL along with 6 sages only to disappear completely afterward. Akira became very disconcerted, as he did not expect her to be the one responsible for creating OL, and neither did I. After saying those words, the man departed. A while later, Akira rests in the hot springs when suddenly he touches one of Yuugure's breasts while swimming without looking. This left the girl very nervous, and she ended up throwing an object at him. On the other hand, Amaru was drawing a beautiful garden of the location. When Arasai and her partner Niyama arrive, both begin to argue again, which causes Amaru to be unable to withstand the pressure and end up leaving the spot. Back to Akira, Yuugure is giving him massages when suddenly Amaru arrives. She begins calling them traitors, as she cannot believe they are bathing without her. Due to jealousy, she ends up entering with them, which creates a very funny situation. Shortly after, Akira leaves the water, and Arasai and Yuugure begin to provoke him, thinking he is a true stallion with the girls. Right after, the group finds themselves seeking a small map in the best position to draw. Since Amaru wants to make some portraits, while the group continues talking, Akira approaches Yuugure, asking what she desires as a thank you, since she healed his wounds, not to mention the massages she gave him in the hot springs. The girl becomes thoughtful and, after a few seconds, says she would like to have a date with him. The next day, we see Akira arriving at the mixed bath, where Nizama and Yuugure are located. He becomes very nervous, since none of them belong to each other's ALC, but they end up inviting him to join the bath. A few hours later, we see Amaru, Niyama, and Yuugure heading to a crater, because Amaru needs to paint some pictures. They say goodbye to Akira, but the girl becomes jealous upon seeing that he bathed with the others. After their departure, Yuugure appears dressed in an extremely beautiful yukata, leaving Akira fascinated. Furthermore, Arasai tells the young man that it is good for the date to go well, as she spent the entire night helping with the preparations. Along with that, while Amaru's group walks to the crater, Niyama reveals that OL wants to destroy some springs, because they found precious minerals throughout the entire zone. This makes her very sad, as it is the reason why she cannot leave OL. She is at the location trying to avoid the destruction, since that would directly affect her partner's hot springs. Back to Akira, they went out to walk for several hours on their date. After performing various activities, he began to feel something more for the girl. Our boy is falling in love. On the other hand, we see Amaru drawing when she remembers a favor that Yuugure asked of her the night before, which was to let her be alone with Akira just for the following day for the date. This left the girl jealous, as she wanted to go with both of them, but she ended up yielding to the request. In the present, Akira and Yuugure are walking in the middle of a forest, right after he repaired her sandal which had broken. Suddenly he looks at her and says she is very beautiful, which makes Yuugure turn as red as a bell pepper. Meanwhile, Amaru confesses to the young men that she is jealous of Yuugure and Akira. She loves both of them and cannot stand knowing that she left them completely alone. And Kurata advises that she should talk to both, because sometimes love can be very selfish. He also tells Niyama that she should talk to her love, so that their relationship does not get ruined. Subsequently, we see a memory from years ago, where Towasa talks to her AI assistant. She mentions that she thinks differently from the others, because she believes that the machines could come to have feelings. Back in the present, Akira and the girl arrive at a location that was part of the war from 200 years ago. He asks if she is a Y-series, and she confirms that she is, being a weapon of war, just like her sisters Kubo and Yoyami. However, Akira affirms that he was never afraid of her, because she saved him on many occasions. Yuugure confesses that she has been behaving strangely because she feels something for him, and jokingly says they should get married. This kid has been asked for marriage 300 times. After talking, they take a photo with Akira's smartwatch. Hours later, upon returning, they are received by Arasai and by Amaru's group. Niyama ends up confessing the truth about OL. They discovered valuable minerals and want to transform the place into a mine. With this, the girl becomes very nervous and thinks they are going to lose the springs they possess. After giving a word of encouragement, the two end up reconciling again. Later at night, Amuro talks with Yuugure and expresses her discontent, as the girl wanted to have gone out with both. Yuugure begins to mock her, saying that today she took a step forward toward marriage, which leaves the girl quite jealous. The next day, the group says goodbye, and after walking a bit, they come out onto the main street. There they find Yuugure, who says he knows Sendai well. He kindly asks to be their guide, since he is going to the same place. After that, we see that during the next few days, the group took several buses and passed through various lodgings. It was quite a trip. Akira lent his smartwatch to try to investigate something about his past, but as soon as they arrived in Sendai, Yuugure said he found nothing, or at least that was what he made Akira think. However, we noticed that he saw something that caught his attention. The group observes the city of Sendai, and Yuugure explains that now the location is a sort of general university, where any information sought will possibly be available, unlike Ol, which holds basically all the knowledge of history. Later the group heads to the local library, and Akira is in shock upon seeing that there are few books. Yuugure heads to the librarian, whom we know as Seihade. She seems to have an affair with the young man. Akira asks for books that talk about artificial intelligence and the war, but the girl says those books are practically a myth. Right after, the two begin to act like two little angels. A little later the group leaves, and Akira comments that if they do not find those books there will be no other place. Finally, the young man says that then they must go to Tokyo. However, the train only departs the next day. Therefore, he recommends that they read everything they want in the library, since he took the key to the place without them noticing. Yuugure confesses to having stolen the girl's key, but according to him, if he returns it later, she will certainly forgive him. He adds that they could take advantage, because he and the girl will have a date, leaving the others free to act without interruptions. Before departing, the young man suggests that they visit the black market of books. While the group walks through the city, suddenly Yuugure senses the presence of her sisters. They hide immediately and wonder what they are doing in the city. Then Yuugure says she is going to distract them so they can follow her, allowing the others to escape easily. After saying those words, she departs, and the sisters soon sense her presence, since they were able to observe a large explosion. Subsequently, Akira and the girl head to the train station and leave the tickets purchased for the following day. Next, they head to another part of the city and find themselves fascinated by everything within it. They arrive at an accessory stall, and we see that Moro is a true negotiator, as she literally secured a bargain for several bracelets. Some time passed and both find themselves sitting near the lake, and the slightly sad Moro asks if he happens to like Yuugure, since the other day she saw them close together and even felt jealous. Furthermore, the girl says that she would not mind forming an ALC between them and Towasa, since in reality everyone loves each other, with the exception of Akira, who clearly has eyes only for Towasa. Later, both arrive at a book sales stall, and we see that Oboro himself is there, who now works as a seller, wholesaler, taxi driver, and now a seller. Take note, everyone. Akira discreetly asks if he happens to have forbidden books. This causes everyone around to remain in disbelief. He adds that Ol conducted a raid, confiscating some of what he had. However, they managed to save several forbidden copies, but since it is not what Akira is looking for, they mention that many of these books were classified by the library and confiscated, being kept in a very secret warehouse. Thus, Akira tells the girl that, in the end, they will enter the place. A few hours later, we see that they arrive at the inn, and Akira has a memory. The subjects they had spoken with at the stall gave him the map of the library, despite the guards who watched the site at night. As the girl fell asleep, Akira decides to go alone, but he is surprised while escaping, as he realizes that she followed him. After entering the building and hiding, they finally arrive at a sort of office. They come across a safe, and Akira is very impressed to see that the lock possesses a technology that he thought was forbidden in this era. Moro soon finds the key to the safe, but upon passing through and unlocking the latches, the noise puts the guards on alert. Fortunately, they manage to hide in time. Along with this, while Yuugure and Seihachi were in their room, the woman says she needs to leave immediately, as an alarm began to ring at that instant. After that, the young people enter a warehouse and are startled by the large quantity of books. However, they spot another door that catches their attention, but at that moment one of the guards enters. Just when they are about to be discovered, Moro launches herself at him. The guard manages to grab her and attempts to take advantage of the girl. but Akira takes him by the neck and makes him faint. Next, they enter a room filled with forbidden books. The girl mentions that he resembles her father, who was very kind but became a hero in situations like this. She remembers a time when her father defended them from some guards, and therefore Moro thanked Akira for having saved her. Suddenly, the girl asks about Towasa, and Akira says that she looked very much like Yuugure physically. Furthermore, he loved the personality full of positive energy that she transmitted. Not to mention that the young woman was extremely intelligent. Upon removing a shroud, Akira notices that there are some books inside a showcase. He is in total shock upon seeing that one of them mentions Towasa's project on the cover. Therefore, he tries to open it, and just when Moro was about to throw a chair to break the glass, Seihachi appears at that instant. The woman strikes Moro and mentions that the library is clearly closed. Seihachi begins to act like a complete madwoman, and, with a whip, starts to pursue the young people. She affirms that she destroys the books as if they were her lovers, which is clearly a sign that she is not at all sane. Next, she begins to attack the two and Akira manages to see Towasa's book right in front of him. At the same time, Moro observes that next to Akira's book is one of her father's books. Seihachi notices this, so she soon takes both books and begins to speak to them. Just at that moment, Moro takes advantage and advances with her lamp. The girl threatens Seihachi, saying she will burn the whole place if she refuses to hand them over. But the woman, being somewhat foolish, decides to attack the girl, which causes Moro to accidentally drop the lamp and the location begins to catch fire. Meanwhile, we see that Kurata is observing the library from a distance. Back to Akira, they try to leave and see that their books still remain intact. The girl, a bit sad, tells them to focus on taking Towasa's book, since he helped her tremendously. After that, they leave the place and we see that everything is completely in flames. However, Akira decided to take the book of Moro's parents instead of his own. On the other hand, Seihachi shows herself to be desperate upon seeing all her books burning, just as Akira and the girl were going to escape. And Kurata arrives at the scene and hands backpacks to both of them. He recommends that they hide before going to the station, as Ol will likely seek some way to follow their trail. Furthermore, for some reason we do not know, the subject asks Amuro if she managed to infiltrate. A while later, both arrive at an abandoned place where they will remain hidden. Akira apologizes to Yuugure for all the trouble caused, since after all, they know he has connections with the library. Yuugure says there is no problem, as they obtained something he was also looking for, precisely the girl's parents' book. Akira soon begins to read it and the story of the book is revealed, mentioning that 12 beautiful angels with very similar appearances were born. In addition, these angels spread throughout the world in order to put an end to sadness. Akira thinks these words sound like Towasa's project, since she thought about implanting chips into humans to be able to improve them. For this reason, he believes that the story and the young woman's words coincide. The next day, the group heads to the train station and Akira is quite nervous. However, after a while, they enter the carriage. They talk and wonder where Yuugure is, as they have not seen her since the previous day. In the same way, Akira ended up gifting the girl the storybook, which makes her think that he is becoming increasingly kind to her. Her heart is beating faster, which clearly means that she likes him very much. Love is beautiful. A little later, after they leave the station, we see that Yuugure was observing them. Seeing that her plan went as expected, she immediately moves and catches up with them on the train, which makes Amuro very excited. After sitting down, Amuro hands her a bracelet she had bought. However, we see that an orange suddenly falls near her, and then a subject arrives. Bari adds that his entire family is moving with him because they transferred him at work. He mentions to Akira that he is an old guard, so he clearly cannot reject the offer. On the other hand, we see that Amuro is having fun with the subject's children, since his son is a painter like her. But at that moment Bari says something, causing Yuugure to stand out in the conversation, who ends up being quite charming toward Bari's wife. This makes him nervous, as his wife has a personality opposite to Bari's, and Yuugure thinks this is very interesting, as it seems that is what makes the two unite. After that, we see that the train makes a stop and Amuro cannot stop thinking about how handsome Akira is. Yuugure comments that love, on some occasions, makes people a bit blind, but the girl is totally moved, thinking that Akira gave priority to her book before his own. After a while they get back on the train, and Akira and Yuugure observe Bari arguing with his wife. He turns to them and immediately asks for help to manage to reconcile with her. Then they sit down to talk, and Bari comments that a few years ago he was unfaithful to the woman. What a naughty guy. Yuugure says he should receive the death penalty for having hurt the girl, and I agree. But Bari confesses it was only once 10 years ago when she was pregnant. Even worse, as Akira does not want to get involved in other people's problem, he stands up and says he can do nothing for him. But Bari soon grabs Akira, and while kneeling, he cries asking for help, as he would like to see his wife smile again for one last time. At that moment, his children appear and realize that their father fought again with their mother. Therefore, he soon sits down again to think of a reconciliation plan. Suddenly, we see that Oboro appears working on the train. My goodness, this fellow changes jobs every day. The young people at this point are not even surprised anymore, as they have already become accustomed to seeing him like this. Oboro recommends that he be sincere with his wife, and his children suggest that he make her remember the day they met, which makes Akira reflect on the importance of a declaration. However, we notice that Yuugure does not seem very happy with this, obviously because she always ends up being rejected by Akira. Yuugure and Akira go out to walk through the train, when suddenly we see that Yoyami kidnaps the young man in one of the train compartments. However, at that moment Yuugure appeared, who threatened the girl with a cannon. Yoyami says he fell right into her trap and they are going to take him to the old headquarters. Furthermore, at the location they met with Kubo, who is very happy to see her sister again, as they had been tracking her for a long time. The girl touches Akira's face, being moved by how soft he is. This causes Yuugure, acting as a very toxic, jealous, and possessive girlfriend, to tell Akira that he is hers alone. After that, Yuugure threatens Yoyami again. But Kubo tells them both to stop fighting in such a silly way. As Kubo is the older sister, the other two obey her instantly. To calm the situation, she mentions that they should have some tea, but Akira takes the opportunity to say that he prefers they talk about Towasa. Meanwhile, we see Amoru, who continues preparing the reconciliation of the couple. At that exact moment, the woman arrives, and Amoru tries to hide what they are doing, but she accidentally confesses that they are planning something. Then, the woman mentions that reconciliation is not the problem, as she remembers the first time he proposed marriage to her. At that moment Yokureda arrives, saying he understands and knows that her husband swore to love only her. The young woman affirms this, and Amoru mentions that she resembles Akira and Towasa, as there are people who prefer to love a single person. Back to Akira, he tells the girl that the only thing he knows is that Towasa put an end to the war. However, he doubts slightly that it truly happened in that manner. Next, he shows a message that the young woman had recorded on his smartwatch. Both sisters refuse to acknowledge knowing anything, but they mention that he should ask Yuugure, as they have been following her for two reasons. The first is because she is a Y series and must monitor the weapons. The second is so that Yuugure tells them where Towasa is located. After a good while, Akira tries to convince Yuugure to speak about Towasa. Seeing that he is unsuccessful, he takes out an earring he had promised her, and while he places it on the girl, Yuugure mentions that she and Towasa promised something to each other, but says that perhaps someday she can tell him. On the other hand, we see that Amoru was spying on the two, and she becomes very sad upon seeing them together, since she is deeply in love with Akira. A little later Akira goes to the group, and they made a bouquet of flowers for Bari's wife. Since Kubo is with them and seems to know Yokureda, Amoru, upon seeing Akira, does not stop observing Yuugure, feeling jealous again. The girl meets with Bari's son, who made an incredible drawing for his mother. After that, we see that Yoyami is talking with Oboro. She complains about her sister, as she is irritated to see her ignoring the main mission. Next, a memory is revealed from when the androids were created. In the account, Towasa regrets having given life to them in this way, mentioning that she treats them as daughters and that incarnation is the only hope. And after some time passed, Yoyami arrived very worried to her sister, saying that Yuugure disappeared along with Towasa. Back to the present, the girl wonders if they really are sisters, obviously because Yuugure abandoned them, since deep down she loves her sister very much. After that, we see the group arrive and perform a serenade for Bari's wife. She does not show herself to be very strong, She becomes happy and ends up accepting the flowers as a gift. At the same time, we see that she and Yuugure stare at each other, which makes Moro feel bad and leave immediately, as she truly cannot endure the attention he is giving the other. Just when the girl thinks she did not have the courage to ask that they include her, she hears someone crying. It is Bari's wife, who was venting about the situation. However, at that moment her son arrived, and after showing the drawing he made of all of them, her attitude changed. The boy asks if she happens to hate his father, but she, upon seeing her son's gift, feels much better. She ends up embracing her son and says she loves her husband very much. However, we see that the woman has tears in her eyes and says she needs to do something quickly. The boy thinks his mother is crying because of the drawing, but Moro soon arrives and tells him the drawing is great, as it truly shows the reality of his family's life. After that, the woman approaches Bari and says they need to talk privately. She affirms that she could never forgive him, since he had sworn to love only her. For having lied in his matrimonial vows, she knows there is something unforgivable. Furthermore, she tells Bari that at the next station she will disembark with the children and return to Sendai. Finally, she hands him an earring he had given her years ago. This causes the man to begin crying while both say they love each other. On the other hand, while Akira looks at some drawings, he realizes that he is being truly bad to Yuugure and Moro. He calls himself trash for avoiding the girls, since he is only chasing after Towasa without caring about their feelings. The next day, we see Akira observing Bari and his wife ending up separated, even knowing that both love each other. Just when Moro was going to say something important to Akira, but is interrupted by Bari's son. The slightly sad boy brings a drawing of the girl, and says she looks much more beautiful when she smiles. He hands over the drawing, and we see that Moro accepts it very joyfully. Finally, both say goodbye and the train departs afterward. After several hours of travel, the train arrives at a city called Omiya. Suddenly, we see that the group is worried, as Yoyami and Yuugure are going to fight. The sister mentions that she is going to take Yuugure back to Oel, but she attacks immediately, launching several laser beams. Yoyami begins to dodge all the attacks, including her sister's famous and powerful beam, and soon counterattacks by destroying several of the weapons Yuugure possessed. Everyone at that moment is in shock as they witness a fight between two androids. In the same way, a very confident Yoyami says she knows all of her attacks. After that, after dodging Yuugure's beam again, both begin to collide in hand-to-hand combat, and Kurata warns that if they do not stop them, one of the two could end up dead. Next, we see that Yoyami manages to break her sister's shield. Just when she thought she had her sister against the wall, Yuugure set a trap, and we see ropes binding her, which soon begins to receive electrical discharges. This causes the girl to fall to the ground dazed, and her sister tells her that she should no longer care about either her or Towasa. This makes her furious and causes her to ask why Yuugure disappeared along with Towasa. Repeatedly, we see Yoyami wield her sword and deliver a slash to Yuugure's chest, leaving everyone in disbelief. Yoyami soon thinks that she had no other choice, and mentions that she is going to end her core. Just before the girl delivers the final blow, Akira runs toward her while having memories by her side. This causes an ability to surprisingly activate in Akira, giving him much more speed and managing to prevent her from hitting Yuugure. Without understanding, Akira begins to hear from Yoyami that he deactivated his limiter. Yuugure tells him not to listen to her words, but her sister affirms that all androids possess a limiter. Akira soon checks the wound caused by Yoyami when he blocked the attack against Yuugure. At that instant, we discover that Akira, just like her, is also an android. Kubo tells Akira that he possibly should have already had a suspicion about the subject. Akira, at that moment, begins to recall his old life alongside Towasa, and realizes that, in reality, he was never human. Yoyami tells Yuugure that she was quite mean to him, since she knew the secret the whole time and never told him. Akira soon begins to become enraged, as he cannot believe the girl lied to him this entire time. He begins to doubt himself, not wanting to hear anything Yuugure has to say. He submerges his mind and questions if he is truly the real Akira, realizing that all the emotions he felt were artificially created. Suddenly, we see Yuugure enter Akira's mental space to try to talk to him, but obviously, he shows himself to be irritated with the girl. thinking she is an imposter. So, as Akira does not want to listen to her, the girl has no choice but to start showing the truth and answering all the questions he has. For that reason, we can suddenly see a memory from the year 2038, when Towasa explains her project to Akira and his father. She wanted to create a biological fusion between human beings and artificial intelligences. The young woman mentions that the greatest obstacle was people's radical fear regarding androids, and as she relied on 6 masterminds, known as the 6 sages, they ended up preparing the project. Next, we see that these memories were being shown by Yuugure. In the same way, she explains that after the accident with the subject firing at them during the presentation, both ended up being operated on at the hospital. Akira had a good recovery, but the girl was left with a sequel, as the impact had damaged her uterus, which would clearly prevent her from ever having children. She spent months trying to discover a possible cure, because she had promised Akira that they would have a family. After several months without managing to resolve the situation, she tried to break up with him because she could not provide the family he desired. But Akira was a young man who cared only for her, so he said that he loved her exactly as she was. After several months passed, the girl decided to continue with her project of chips in humans. It is explained that 2 years later, Akira obtained a doctorate in the subject and became indispensable to Towasa's investigation. He even proposed marriage, but she was afraid to be with a young man because, as time passed and the project advanced, the young woman continued to receive death threats. Years later, in 2045, they had a great breakthrough by creating the smallest machine in the world, allowing it to mix with people's blood. Akira was one of the first to receive an implant, mentioning that he now had access to the internet in his mind. The project was an immediate success, and within a while, more than 80% of humans already possessed one of these implants. However, as everything good is short-lived, the geniuses who created the project alongside her realized that the system of the implanted people could literally be hacked. They could even force people to do things against their will. The scientists swore to keep it a secret and not tell Towasa, as there was no way to remove the implants from the blood. But as was to be expected, the information leaked, as hackers caused immense damage in all parts of the world. This drove Towasa to despair, as she could not find a means to remove the implants, and she showed herself to be very regretful for having caused all of that. A year later, people began to protest against her. Akira, along with the girl and her father, commented that they should seek a solution as soon as possible. However, no matter how many tests they performed, they always found a backdoor through which hackers could enter. The girl began to waste away gradually due to extreme exhaustion, until in 2050 she suffered an attack in which her father died, and she ended up in the hospital. With no other option, Towasa activated a much superior AI to help her resolve the problems. However, this intelligence took control of everything, installing itself in the system of every person who possessed a chip in their blood, provoking a global conflict. In 2051, all television channels were hacked by AI. Akira, upon seeing what was happening, realized that it was something done by Towasa. Then, the AI declared that the greatest plague in the world was the human being and that it would cleanse the planet. The robots immediately initiated a war against humans. One day, a very depressed Towasa, in front of the camera, wanted to take her own life, but she was stopped by Akira in time. Desperate, she said she deserved to die, as many people had lost their lives because of her project. Akira tried to advise her, but she said she could not stop her creation. It concerned Earth, which was the most superior AI in the world. But finally, Akira managed to calm the girl, and his support gave her motivation to seek a real solution. It was then that she reunited with the geniuses and they created the Y series, utilizing her face so that she could carry that burden for the rest of her life. Then many of her sisters were created, used to combat Earth by defeating robots created through the control of humans. Finally, they created Yuugure, who possesses the most experienced AI of all. And it is explained that during 2 years they managed to pursue and corner Earth in a physical space, defeating it and ending the AI war against humans. This war left only 200,000 people in the entire world. From what Towasa knew, a new challenge was coming, both technological and climatic. An ice age and technological regression were almost inevitable, so she utilized the little that remained of technology to create a tool capable of healing the environment, a tool that to this day continues restoring the planet. Finally, due to this effect, the whole organization was founded, and as they needed global leadership, Towasa and the 6 sages were chosen to lead the institution. It is also explained that Akira was decorated and promoted to director of OL. The organization prohibited any type of use of advanced technology, as they did not want something similar to the war to occur again. However, it is not all roses. In 2057, Towasa disappeared, leaving a message for Akira on his smartwatch. Then, Yuugure reveals to Akira that the real Akira spent the next 20 years directing the organization and trying to find his partner. As age and illness were consuming him, he created a clone to continue the search for Towasa. This is the true reason why Akira was also created as an android. At that moment, Yuugure confesses to Akira that since she knew of his existence, she became interested in marriage. She embraces him while saying she will seek a way to fill him with happiness, because although he possesses Akira's memories, he is now living in his own world. Akira gives thanks for the words and his face changes to an expression of great happiness. Suddenly he awakens in a bed, getting a fright upon seeing a much more adult Moro. Next, we are transported to the past, precisely on the day that Akira became unconscious. The group heads to a house and we see Yuugure carrying him on her back, because when he entered his mental world, he entered sleep mode. Yuugure asks Moro if she really knew that he was an android. The girl responds that she did, as she noticed on the day he was shot. After that, the group arrives at an apartment and Yuugure mentions that she would connect to his system, warning that while she was connected, she would possibly remain asleep for days or even years. Kubo appears and says she protected the area so that no one disturbs them, installing laser towers to defend the location in case of an attack. After thanking her sister and Yuugure connects to Akira, a very worried Moro hopes that they return soon, and motivated, she promises to take care of both. We see that for several years the girl dedicated herself to the care of both, until the day she realized that they had finally awakened. Upon seeing Yuugure awake, she begins to cry with happiness. Akira awakens and we return to the present where he sees the adult girl. A little later, she prepares a welcome party. Akira mentions that although they are androids, they must continue eating, as they are exact copies of humans. Kubo, who was drunk, tells Akira that he should thank Amaru, as she was the one responsible for taking care of the two of them. He thanks her immediately, and Amaru mentions that 7.5 years have passed since the moment both disconnected from reality. Thoughtfully, Akira tells the girl that during all this time, Yuugure showed him and answered each of his doubts. However, noticing that they spent all this time together, the girl becomes a bit sad and goes to the kitchen in search of some water to hide it. She felt very bad realizing that Akira, despite having her by his side, had seen her as nothing more than a dear person. After that, we see Yuugure talking in secret with Yoyami. The girl asks where Yuugure is, but he hides the truth and responds that he knows nothing. Furthermore, he makes the girl believe that he is also searching in the same way, although he has another purpose. The next day, Akira and Amaru go out for a walk, and Akira apologizes to her for clearly having wasted the young woman's time. Since as a human, she began to age, the girl can no longer contain her feelings, and after embracing Akira, she confesses that she loves him. She knows that he now loves Yuugure and adds that she does not understand what is happening, but that she would like him to love her too, in the same way that she loves him. A little later, Akira returns with the other girls, and they confess that the real Akira is still alive, as they manage to extend his life through the underground laboratory of Towasa's family. Thus, he accepts going to the location to meet the real Akira. Meanwhile, Amaru invents an excuse to leave, and we see her crying in a forest. There she finds Yuugure and says she feels like a true fool for having created so many expectations with Akira. However, she asks the young man if he does not want her simply for being human. The subject suddenly says that if that is the problem, he could help her realize her true desire. The next day, Amaru prepares to leave, and the young people show themselves to be a bit worried about her, as she spent the whole night thinking about Yuugure's words. Akira, seeing that she does not seem happy with him, prefers to remain silent. Before departing, the girl tells them to proceed to Towasa's laboratory, and that she will reunite with them later. After a few days have passed, Akira and Yuugure walk, and she says she knows that he also loves Amaru. But Akira takes her by the hands and says that when they return they will spend time with the girl. Next, we see that they finally arrive at the city where the central headquarters of OL is located. It possesses a great wall around it, so Yuugure hands over a false identification so that he can pass through the security inspection. Upon arriving at the gate, they realize that the guard is Oboro himself. After that, we see that Kurata and Amaru arrive at the old laboratory of the 6 sages. At that instant, the girl is injected with the same substance utilized decades ago. After that, the subject begins to manipulate her system, and we see that, it appears, he managed to hack the girl. She is being manipulated to finish off Yuugure and be able to stay with Akira. Back to Akira, they talk with Oboro, who confesses to being the director of OL. We discover that during all this time, the subject followed them to ensure their care, fulfilling a direct order from the real Akira. Finally, he says that due to the esteem he has for his boss, he will take both of them to him. Meanwhile, we see that Yoyami arrives at an abandoned place, and, suddenly, Amaru appears behind her. She hands over a map indicating where Yuugure is. However, she manages to inject something into the android, who falls immediately. Just before fainting, Yoyami realizes that Amaru has been hacked. On the other hand, while Oboro takes the young people to the laboratory, the subject explains that since everything happened, Tokyo separated from the world, managing to maintain its current technology. Along with that, we see that Yuugure is controlling Amaru's mind, and not only hers but Yoyami's as well. For him, it is a bit difficult to control Yoyami, as during the 200 years, the girl managed to evolve tremendously. Right at that moment, Kubo appears behind the subject pointing a weapon. Very surprised, he asks how she managed to get there, and the girl shows that she possessed her sister's GPS. At that instant, Kubo says she knows he wants to transfer Amaru's consciousness to Yoyami. Furthermore, the girl unmasked him, mentioning that it appears the subject is one of the sages, since only he knows how to modify and control the eyes. Yuugure confesses that the only thing he wants is to see Towasa again. Back to Akira, Oboro admits that some people continue to search for Towasa and adds that the personal AI of the original Akira also wants to meet him. On the other hand, Yuugure tells Kubo that he changed his name and appearance to go unnoticed, clearly to be able to find the young woman. However, he suddenly receives a slash to the neck delivered by Yoyami, who has now awakened, combining Amaru's consciousness with the android body. It is said that despite the girl being decapitated, the body can regenerate little by little, and Yuugure holds her head. After that, the girl uses technology to teleport. Back to Akira, Oboro leaves them in one part of the city, and they continue on foot. Finally, after walking and entering the laboratory, we see them descend into an underground section. Just as they were about to reach where the real Akira is located, Yoyami, or rather, now Amaru appears behind them, because she wanted to possess an android body to be loved by Akira. The subject used Yoyami's body as a base. The girl says that now he will finally be able to love her. They are stunned to see Amaru in Yoyami's body. It's a truly strange sight. She confesses that Yuugure was the one who recommended she take over Yoyami's body so that Akira could love her. After all, since Akira is an android, he would possibly love her if she were one too. Suddenly, Amaru approaches Akira and manages to stab him with a knife. Then, she reaches in and tears out his robotic heart. Like someone who has lost her mind, she mentions that now his heart belongs to her. This causes Yuugure to push the girl away immediately, but Yoyami soon approaches her sister to attack. We see that Amaru and Yoyami are fighting internally for control of the body. At that moment, Yuugure realizes that both minds are completely fused. After that, Yuugure begins to attack, but the adversary is very skillful, dodging all attacks and launching herself back into the fray. On another front, we see Yuugure fighting Kubo. He manages to land several blows, but due to the girl's regenerative capacity, he hasn't caused much damage. Suddenly, she summons a mist that completely surrounds the place. Next, Kubo uses a clone ability. They surround the subject while asking why he wants to see Towasa. The man tries to apologize, saying he only wants to ask forgiveness for everything that happened with the hacking. But Kubo responds that this is no excuse for hurting the people she loves. This causes the subject to start firing at all the clones, but he discovers it was just a trap. The girl appears above him, and by firing her laser beams, she leaves him completely toasted on the ground. Back to the girls, they continue an intense hand-to-hand combat. Yuugure says she must calm down, as her core might not hold out. Seeing this, Yoyami breaks Yugure's shield, but Yuugure strikes back hard, sending her flying against the building. Yuugure asks why she is so obsessed with Towasa, but the fighting resumes. Both cut off one of each other's upper extremities, and at that moment, we see Amoru regain control. She asks Yuugure why the three of them can't be together, since she waited more than 7 years to create an ALC with them. Yuugure responds that she loves Akira and wants to marry only him. However, Amoru counters by saying she loves both of them and ends up kissing the girl. Nevertheless, Yuugure reinforces that she wishes to love only one person. Then, Yoyami takes control and starts an argument with her sister, asking why they never blamed her for failing to protect Towasa. Yuugure reveals that all the sisters have been blaming themselves internally for not being able to help her. After these words, Yoyami gradually loses her strength, and Yuugure ends up cutting off her legs just before the girl passes out. Yuugure confesses that she never took Towasa away. In reality, Towasa had asked her to accompany her on a mission, and that was the reason Yuugure fled. Seeing that Yuugure has a good heart, Yoyami yields control to Amoru, who confesses to having fallen in love with her precisely for that reason. After saying those words, the girl passes away. Following this, Yuugure turns to Akira, removing her own core and connecting it to him. This wakes him up immediately, and she explains that it is already too late for Amoru and Yoyami, as the fusion of their minds is gradually destroying both their spirits, making it nearly impossible to separate them at that point. Akira realizes that by being connected to Yugure's core, she will possibly die. Akira tries to stop her, but Yuugure mentions that if he survives, it will be enough for her, since they couldn't get married if one of them were dead. After saying this, the girl falls unconscious to the floor. While crying, Akira hears a voice and realizes it is Dovi, the AI assistant. She informs him that they can still save the girl, so without wasting any time, he begins to descend to a lower floor. They arrive at the laboratory where they were created, and Dovi asks Akira to place the girl on one of the stretchers. We see that the capsule begins to heal Yugure's wounds, while Dovi takes Akira to see another capsule. At that moment, we meet the true Akira, who is now an elderly man. Dovi tells Akira to ask the true Akira anything he wishes, since he is going to sacrifice himself to save Yuugure. Akira expresses his gratitude and says he wants to know the reason for his existence. The true Akira reveals that he already knew everything he wanted to ask before he even spoke, as both are interconnected, and everything Akira lived and saw, the elder also followed in real time. Then the elder reveals that he is the natural son he could never have with Tosa, and asks him to read his diary after his death. Akira is startled to hear that the true Akira was responsible for creating the concept of love for the Elses, and the elder gives him a speech about why he must have his own Else, mentioning that he should stay with Yuugure Yamoro. They are people who make him feel very special. As the elder finishes his final words, we see that Yuugure awakens at that exact moment. The girl thanks Dovi and the elder for saving her life, and the true Akira expressed his happiness at seeing them together for the last time. After passing away, the capsule opened, and he left one final piece of advice, saying that no matter if you are a human or a machine, you must enjoy every moment of life to the fullest and connect with the world. And Yuugure then delivered Tosa's final words to him, stating that she would love him until death. Hearing this made the elder cry with joy in his final moments. After the passing, the group left the laboratory and met with Kubo and Oboro. Kubo apologized for all the conflict and revealed that, although Amuro was alive, she remained in a coma due to the hacking. As the years went by, life moved forward for all the allies Akira met on his journey, and Yami was finally restored and healed. We then see Akira and Yuugure visiting the grave of Tosa, who passed away from old age at 82 years old, very elderly. Before her, Akira asks Yuugure to marry him, leaving her extremely moved. Yuugure reveals that the last promise she made to Tosa was to protect her sisters and introduce her future fiancé to her. By taking him to the grave, the promise was fulfilled. Both declare themselves to one another, and Yuugure admits that she also loves Amaru, deciding that the three of them will reinvent the concept of matrimony to live together. The anime ends with Amaru waking up from her coma and crying with happiness as she is embraced by the two of them. Do not forget to leave a like and comment love. A kiss from Batkun.